he hears something about a mine going south. He and his wife used to drive south to Florida every year. They would stay a week, visit a nearby Christmas shop, stroll along the beach. One September, he found a baby turtle stranded during low tide. He took it to a lifeguard. It was an endangered species. He hoped he'd given the turtle a new chance of life, that it was as big as a kitchen table now, safe in the ocean. He's in an unfamiliar room where everyone is dressed as if they're at church. He glances down and sees that he's wearing his brown suit. He feels his head. Wearing his hat indoors would be unforgivable. Someone should have told him. But his head is bare. Was there a hat rack in the hallway? "Are you all right?" a girl's voice says. She sounds far away, but he realizes she's beside him. They're sitting on cushioned metal chairs, and he's holding her hand. She's a redhead, like his granddaughter Christine. But she's not Christine. He sees Christine across the room, talking to a woman in a navy blue dress. His son was in the Navy, one of his sons. The other was in the Merchant Marine. "I found a turtle," he says. "Perhaps she could tell the lifeguard." "I remember. Daddy sent me pictures." She doesn't get up. He wonders why her father had photographs of the turtle. Is he wearing his hat? He feels his head again. "Can I get you anything?" the girl asks. Her hand is tiny, weightless. He used to lift weights. He could bench press his weight, 220 pounds. He was retired and tuning pianos at a high school when he benched his weight on a dare, and the boys never called him an old man again. He's still holding the girl's hand. "Have you known Christine long?" he says. She looks at him, and he sees the same green and wide-set eyes that his granddaughter has. "Yes," she says simply. His sons were boys when they went to war. One was stationed in the Pacific, and the other the Atlantic. Going across, they called it. He had to give permission for his one in the Pacific to go to war. Signing his name that day was one of the hardest things he'd ever done. His youngest son was only 17. "Is there something I need to sign?" he asks. The girl seems puzzled. She glances around the room. "I don't think so," she says. "We can ask Christine later." There are stands of flowers around the room, mostly roses. His wife's favorite flower. "My wife grows roses," he tells the girl. She nods and clears her throat. She gives every rose bush a name. Flower names. "Yeah, Violet. Her voice trails off. "You know my wife?" The girl looks at her lap, picks a piece of lint from her skirt. She's wearing black. She seems to be having trouble swallowing. In church, he once helped a woman who'd fainted. He'll get up now and help this girl. She squeezes his hand. "Are you okay? Do you need something?" He senses a change in the feel of the room. something crackling through it like static. When he was a safety engineer, he taught linemen the dangers of electricity. It won't respect you, but you have to respect it, he cautioned. He glances around. He sees too many people in the room. When did it become so crowded? There is distant music, too. A piano, unaccompanied. I play the piano, he says. That's you, the girl says. A recording of you playing. I taught myself by ear. She nods again. My father recorded you a few years back. Her nose has turned pink, like one of his wife's roses. The one he calls peony, he thinks. Her eyes are pink at the corners, too. Fire marshal, he says. Too many people. It's okay, she tells him. Everyone is wearing black, blue, or brown, except one person, an old man in a gray suit with sleeves that are too long. Pennies from heaven, he says. A different room now, large, high-ceilinged. How did he get here? He can't remember. Church. He is definitely in church, on the front pew, sitting between Christine and the girl. When I visited her, she always knew more church gossip than I did, Reverend Benson is saying. A few chuckles drift through the room. Someone has died. There's a coffin near the altar. A spray of red roses spills over the top. They're the color of his wife's firefighter, hybrid tea rose, the one she calls amaryllis. She was a live wire, Reverend Benson says. She was twice my age and had twice my energy. He remembers attending the funeral of a lineman who stepped on a live wire during a snowstorm. Corley Newsom. You can't see electricity, but it can see you, he'd tell his men. Before the utility company had a full-fledged safety program, he headed its first aid team. And when he got to Corley was already gone. He had to find something non-conductive to move the lineman. If he touched Corley directly, the shock would pass through his body too. Christine has a hand on one of his arms, and the girl has a hand on the other. Laughter. He didn't hear what was said. Worried about black spot on her roses, but they always looked beautiful to me. I asked her once if they were using performance-enhancing drugs. Performing. As a young man, he could juggle, do handstands, backflips. He formed a circus with 3 of his brothers and traveled through the Virginia foothills with 2 horses. His specialty was balancing one foot on the back of each horse as they trotted in a circle. Yeah, respect. You had to respect yourself. The horses, electricity. Yeah, when he was born, it hadn't yet made its way to the countryside. Then it became one more thing you could die of. Christine and the girl are dabbing at their eyes. He hears sniffles behind him. His wife always cried when a letter arrived from one of their sons serving overseas. The airmail stamp was the color of blood. It featured a plane that didn't actually exist. A phantom plane. Was he supposed to sign something? Had he signed his younger son's death sentence? He and another man had to drag Corley's body through the snow. Corley, with 2 children and a wife at home, who would tell them? The snow crunched beneath Corley's weight. It was a sound that had haunted him since. 2 children. During the war, his wife spread playing cards on the kitchen table each morning, trying to read the fate of each son. The Jack of Hearts stood for the older, fairer son, and the Jack of Clubs was a reference to the younger, dark-haired son. All of the cards had meanings, she said. He never paid much attention, but he knew that the 8 and the 9 of spades represented accidents, misfortunes, bad luck. Did he say something? You're not supposed to talk in church. He looks at Christine and then at the other girl. Christine is listening to the minister. The other girl is looking into her lap, rubbing her thumbnail with her index finger. He remembers his youngest son doing the same thing. He must not have spoken. At Corley's, the words wouldn't come. Corley's wife stood with the screen door against her back, gripping her apron. Her face was white. Gardenia, she knew, felt the words that crackled in the silence. What was the problem with Gardenia? Oh, he remembered. Gardenia was the white rose, the rose that reminded him of the snow. Church has ended, and 2 men are helping him navigate some icy steps. He hears Corley's body being dragged. Electricity was hiding there in the snow. Behind him he hears Christine talking to the girl. Oh, he has good days and bad days, Christine is saying. She has a cold, he thinks. Hey, bundle up, he says. Christine pats his back. You're fine, Granddaddy, she says. You have your overcoat, and this nice man is letting you wear his hat. Oh, a man needs a hat, he agrees. The men walk him to a car that heads a line of cars. He sits between them in the front seat. Christine and the girl take places in the back. The driver turns the engine on, but they don't move for a long time. He remembers a neighbor dying of carbon monoxide poisoning when her car's exhaust system malfunctioned. She belonged to the same garden club as his wife did, had given his wife a yellow rose bush on Easter. Daffodil, he whispers. The boulevard, he hadn't realized they were already moving. He sees a red light at the intersection, but the driver runs it. A police car is positioned at a diagonal as they pass. Maybe the policeman will pull the driver over. Respect. You had to respect the rules of the road. Horses. Electricity. Their home was wired for electricity the summer his youngest son was born. He remembers that they could only turn on 1 light at a time. In the early days, his wife feared there would be a fire. In case of fire, get the children to safety and don't go back, he told her. Do your best not to get disoriented. Horses would do that, get disoriented, return to a burning barn. I explained to him that your father is ill and couldn't come, but I'm not sure he understood, Christine is saying. He feels bad. He didn't know the girl's father was ill. No wonder her nose and eyes are pink. Should he say something now or wait till they get where they're going? 9 of spades, he says. Granddaddy always liked to play cards, remember? Christine says. The man to the right of him is wearing a leather overcoat that crackles every time he shifts position. Was there something about a fire? They approach another intersection, another police car. The driver sails past. "Another red light," he says. "He knows where he is," Christine's friend says. "He understands." He wonders what there is to understand. You don't run a red light. It's a basic rule of defensive driving. They're under a tent with the coffin in front of them. A cold wind shakes the poles holding up the tent. He is between Christine and the girl again, holding their hands. They are all wearing gloves. When did he put on his gloves? Is his hat on? He hopes he has removed it. Beneath their feet is a thick green outdoor carpet covering the snow. It would be easy to trip on it, he thinks. Gardenia. "And recite the 23rd Psalm," the Reverend Benson instructs. Did the girl's father die? Christine had said he was ill when the service is over. He'll have to ask. "He leadeth me beside still waters," the crowd is saying. Still waters run deep. There was a lake near their home, a lake his sons passed as they walked to school every day. He taught both of them to swim at an early age. Respect. Respect for electricity. Respect for the water. One summer, a friend of theirs drowned while trying to save another boy. The friend waded in, couldn't swim. The drowning boy grabbed him in panic, wouldn't let go. He is still holding the girl's hands. He won't let them drown.